Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Russian Federation, the Republic of Mauritius, the dancing and from the ministry, replacing Honorable Minister Dukan, Dr. Jayanti Noga, Chairperson of Rajiv Gandhi Science Center Trust Fund Board, Mr. Rico Ba, Acting CTO, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Lord Mayor, Secretary General of the IORO, directors and heads of ministries and parastatal bodies, board members of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center Trust Fund Board, members of the media, distinguished guests, all protocols observed, very good morning. Now, today it's a bit different function. So on behalf of the board members and staff of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, I welcome you for this special event in collaboration with the Embassy of the Russian Federation in the Republic of Mauritius. Well, today we shall do a time travel in space to celebrate the World Space Week. Now, the United Nations General Assembly declared World Space Week in 1999. So what is the Space Week? It's a worldwide event that commemorates the achievements and contributions of space science, technology, and its applications. World Science Week Association has as mission to strengthen the link between space and society through public education, participation, dialogue on the future of space activity using World Space Week as a focus. Now, officially, activities of World Space Week are held from 4th to 10th of October every year, but it extends also before and after that period, throughout October. Now, why this date of 4th and 10th of October? There are some milestones. The 4th of October marks the launch anniversary of the first human-made Earth satellite, the Sputnik 1, in 1957. On this date, the Soviet Union successfully launched the first Earth-orbiting satellite to support scientific research effort undertaken by several nations during the 1957-1958 International Geophysical Year. And the Soviets call it Sputnik, or simply a traveling companion. And now we have vaccination instead. Now, the Sputnik launch marked the start of the space age and the US-USSR space race. It's also interesting to note that Sputnik 2 was launched in 3rd November 1957 with the first dog Laika on board, with the objective to test the ability to launch a living organism into space and bring it back alive and unharmed. Now that's the beginning of the Space Week. And the 10th of October, what happened on that date? It marks the anniversary of what you call Outer Space Treaty in 1967, which governs how to use space, such as moon and other celestial bodies, peacefully. Well, it may be highlighted that over 120 countries are celebrating this event by registering over 3,000 events on the official World Space Week site. And our center, Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, has also registered this event and some more events, including astronomy quiz on social media, and then a travel exhibition known as Fly Me into Space to Secondary Schools. And I'm very thrilled. Someone told me at the beginning we are at MRIC is setting up a space unit. We just heard back this week in its premises following the launch of the first Mauritian nanosatellite. And I'm sure you will agree, MRIC, represented by Director General Professor Bauran, deserves our congratulations for this venture. I think it's a leap from. Now, ladies and gentlemen, RGSC continuously strives to popularize science at all levels and all fronts. This is the reason behind this event we are meeting today. Now, two events are directly related. First is a model glider competition, for which the finals are now being held on the 20th of October. And students need not be science students. They have to design, create, and fly a model glider. And these are evaluated by experts and young aeronautical engineers. So just showing you the level of the competition. Now, we all know that space science is a costly business, relying largely on private and public firms. And scientists are accountable to the public, and it is their duty to communicate and disseminate scientific information to the public. However, science communication is an art, not easily mastered by all scientists. Now, the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center has a fundamental duty of promoting science and of empowering youth to communicate science. In this line, RGSC has come up with science communication contest destined to secondary school students. A 4-minute science, which encourages students to explain a scientific concept to non-specialist students in a 4-minute video. And this is very challenging, believe me, and this will empower our students to talk about complex science or topics in simple language. And this is fully sponsored by the MCB, and of course, well, with public voting also on Facebook. Now, distinguished guests, this year's, you must have noticed, World Space Week brings people together from around the world to celebrate women in space with a variety of online events and interactive learning activities. Did you know? As of March 2021, 65 women have flown in space, including cosmonauts, astronauts, payload specialists, and space station participants. This is about 11.5% of the total number of travelers into space. A number seems quite low. But on a positive note, at NASA, which was an exclusively men-oriented place, workman place, for a long time, the number of women astronauts has now increased to about 45% of the workforce. And here also we have lots of role models, women scientists in Mauritius. Now, since 2015, Dr. Noga has been the chairperson of the RGSCTF. And since then, she has left no stone unturned to find means and ways to encourage our youth to get into science. Working on gender issues in science and increasing our network at international levels. She is continuously sharing her rich knowledge and experience to all of us.
Good morning again. It is indeed an immense pleasure for me as chairperson of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center Trust Fund Board to welcome you all to this great event, which is the unveiling of the Buste of Yuri Gagarin. A special welcome to our chief guest, Mr. Dan Singhani, who is representing the Ministry of Education, and to His Excellency Mr. Klimovsky for being present today to give all their support in this event. I'm extremely grateful to the Russian Embassy for donating the bust of Yuri Alekseyevich Gagarin, a Soviet cosmonaut who was the first human to journey into outer space in 1961 in the capsule Vostok 1. Today, we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of his historic and monumental flight, and this event coincides, as Dr. Molu has just said, with the United Nations World Space Week, which is being celebrated worldwide on Earth. Space is very exciting, and there is so much left to explore in space, and Russia was a pioneer in space exploration. Other countries, of course, have followed suit. In 2019, we had the visit of one cosmonaut, Mr. Sergei Avdeyev, and he, through his talks, managed to inspire the students and the academia about space. He did an account of all the experience he had while he was in space. Yuri Gagarin, of course, went into the unknown for the first time where nobody has done it before. Some people now are already experiencing the wonders of space as space tourists. Even businesses have started about space. Science and technology have made such ventures possible. Mauritius, as a small island state, embarked on this venture in the launching of a nano satellite, Metersat-1, in June. Dr. Bauer is here to just attest to that. And this year, that happened this year by the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council. The Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, also as according to its mandate, is trying to promote science and technology in this country, and the bust of Yuri Gagarin at the Rajiv Gandhi Center will of course be a source of inspiration for our youth and even the parents, all the visitors who visit the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, and I'm sure they will show a greater interest in STEM subjects and dream of embarking in such exciting science and technology related careers. Many countries have helped the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center in its mission to promote science and technology, namely Russia, India. This center itself is here in existence thanks to all the assistance given by India, but Australia, France, UK, and other countries like USA also. We had the visit of some well-known academics in the center. We hope the satellite center at Reggie takes off in a near future, and our youth and the public at large will get the opportunity to view the sky, the planets, the stars. We're already doing that virtually here during the pandemic, and this has really excited the interest of all the visitors because our sky is really beautiful. In order to promote the interest of girls and women in space flight, the UN has dedicated this year to women in space. Valentina Tereshkova, as Dr. Molu has just said, was the first woman to orbit the Earth in 1963, and others have followed. I remember in 2003, we had a big conference at the MIE, Mauritius Institute of Education, and that's the time when there was Kalpana Chawla who went into space, but sadly, she didn't succeed. It was a very tragic accident at that time. So this in itself shows that space exploration is open to all, irrespective of gender. Dr. Molu and the staff of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center are putting a lot of efforts to create interest in STEM subjects, and they deserve our congratulations. We are grateful to His Excellency Mr. Klimovsky from the Russian Embassy, the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology, and the board for supporting the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center in its mission to promote interest in science and technology, which undoubtedly will make Mauritius become a knowledge-based economy and create a better quality of life for its citizens. To conclude, we can proudly say that, in French I'll say it, nous jouons dans la cour des grands. Thank you all.
Of course, it's a pleasure to participate in this event, and first of all, I would like to thank the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center for this possibility, and I'm very pleased that we could continue our fruitful cooperation. As you know, as you see, 60 years ago, on April the 12th of 1961, the manned spacecraft named Vostok was launched from Baikonur Cosmodrome, and after 108 minutes of the flight, during which one complete revolution around the Earth was made, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person in the world history to fly into outer space. This event, which literally became a turning point for the history of space exploration by mankind, represented the results of joint work of countless Soviet engineers, scientists, employees of research institutes, as well as thousands of staff members involved in related spheres, whose long-term work has made it possible to implement one of the most ambitious and technologically complex projects in global history. It should be noted that before the flight of Yuri Gagarin, the Soviet Union made a number of scientific breakthroughs in space exploration domain. For instance, the launch of the first artificial satellite Sputnik 1, and Dr. Malu mentioned this fact that it took place on October 4th, 1957. Also, the conduct of the first hard landing of the Soviet automatic interplanetary station on the surface of Moon in 1959, the first images of the reverse side of the Earth satellite, which were taken the same year. However, it was the feat performed by the first Soviet cosmonaut that became a starting point for the implementation of important space projects, which laid the basis for modern research and programs implemented around the world. The achievements made by the Soviet Union and Russia within the framework of the manned space flight programs gained major popularity around the world. Vostok is a series of single-seat manned spacecraft developed for carrying out flights in near Earth orbit with ejection and landing of a cosmonaut separately from launch vehicle. They have been built from 1958 up to the 1963. It was the first Vostok that made it possible to carry out a human flight into space. Also, the first female cosmonaut, Valentina Tereshkova, flew on the spaceship of this series in 1963. Voskhod is the world's first series of spacecraft suitable for simultaneous flight of 3 cosmonauts. In 1965, during the course of launching Voskhod 2 spacecraft, Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov performed the first ever human spacewalk. The first baseline model of a manned multi-seat spacecraft series entitled Soyuz was made in 1962. The ships of this series carried out more than 130 successful manned flights and became the key component of the space exploration programs. Since 2011, after the failure of an American project Space Shuttle, and until the first manned flight of the Crew Dragon, which took place in 2020, Soyuz spaceships have been the only means to deliver space crews to the International Space Station. This is how in 1969 a controlled docking and a group flight of 3 ships from the Soyuz family was carried out, and the Soviet-American program Soyuz Apollo Test Project, also known as Handshake in Space, was implemented. During the joint manned flight, the crews successfully made docking of the Soviet space Soyuz 19 and the American spacecraft Apollo, and carried out a number of joint scientific experiments. You see that even during the Cold War, the both countries managed to explore the space together. The delivery of the first in history modular manned scientific and research space station to the near-Earth orbit, which was undertaken in 1986, became one of the most ambitious space projects in modern history. During the period of its functioning, more than 23,000 experiments were conducted, and also 2 records for the duration of stay in space. The station was visited by 104 astronauts from 19 countries, including India, Brazil, Malaysia, South Africa, the United Arab Emirates, etc. 29 astronauts carried out spacewalks. Being an international project, the International Space Station not only gave an opportunity to establish interaction between the Soviet Union and the USA, France, Great Britain, and a number of other European countries, but also provided a platform for conducting their own space research. From 1962 to 2001, Russia and Soviet Union launched about 2,000 artificial satellites of the Cosmos series. From 1958 to 1976, the launches of the Soviet automatic interplanetary station of the Luna series designed to study the moon and outer space were carried out. And Soviet Union explored the Earth satellite via a series of remotely controlled planetary rovers, E8, better known to the world as lunokhodists or moonwalkers. The first Soviet planetary rover Lunokhod 1 became operational in 1970. Soviet scientists were also successful in exploring other planets of the solar system. The Soviet Union launched interplanetary station of the Mars series, designed for testing and technology of interplanetary flights, checking the technical base of rocket and space technology necessary for interplanetary travel, and verifying the possibility of organizing radio communication at interplanetary distances. In 1971, the Soviet system Mars 3 carried out the first ever soft landing on the surface of Mars. In its turn for exploring the surface of Venus, the Soviet Union produced an eponymous series of automatic interplanetary stations from 1961 to 1983. Therefore, the USSR became a pioneer in many areas of space exploration. The results of Soviet tests and experiments were of fundamental importance for the development of the world space science and set up a number of trends, the benefits of which we can observe until this day. But in spite of these facts, sometimes we see the very negative approach towards this very important field of the cooperation from some parties. And I have to say that even during the celebration of the anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's spaceflight this year, we dealt with a clearly expressed desire of a number of Western political forces to conceal or to diminish the contribution of the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation to the development of cosmonautics. And the congratulations on the International Day of Human Spaceflight that was published on the 12th of April on the official Facebook page of the Foreign Ministry of one of the Western countries and became a sad example. They did not mention either the feat of Yuri Gagarin or the Soviet Union, whose technological base made it possible to send a man into space, and the foreign astronaut, not Gagarin, was looking from the photo. Nevertheless, all attempts to silence such a significant event in the life of humanity, which the UN General Assembly decided to declare a holiday, turned out to be fruitless, and the whole world celebrated the anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's spaceflight widely and massively. And nowadays, Russia continues studying and exploring space, which is one of the most important elements of modern Russian science. So in 2018, aboard the International Space Station, Russian researchers conducted a first ever experiment on the implementation of three-dimensional magnetic bioprinting in space, which showed that the use of this technology is possible in specific conditions characteristic for orbital stations. Recently, Russian engineers have set another record by delivering a payload to low Earth orbit. In 2018, the fastest in history Progress MS-11 cargo ship arrived at the International Space Station and spent on its way a record 3 hours and 11 minutes. At the moment, a number of Russian research centers and design bureaus are actively developing a nuclear-powered propulsion system, which in the future will increase the mass of the cargo that can be delivered to the orbit and will make it possible to overcome huge distances in a short period of time. According to the preliminary calculations, the use of this technology will allow you to fly to Mars and return to Earth in 1 month and a half. So the dreams of the world's fantastic writers could become a reality. But not only research and development of technology. These days, as you probably know, for the first time in the history of mankind, the Russian Federation, unexpectedly overtaking American Hollywood, is shooting in space a first feature film named Challenge. And you can see in the photo a young movie star, Yulia Peresild, film director Klim Shipenko, and the head of the cosmonaut station, Anton Shkarpelov, who are supposed to stay in the airless space until October 17th. And dear Mr. Malu mentioned that now, for the moment, there are 65 women cosmonauts who were into space. I think that we should add the 66, because in spite of the fact that she is a young movie star, now she is in outer space, and even she helped the chief of the space ship to dock the spaceship to the international station. And finally, Russia continues to develop cooperation with many other countries in the field of exploration and use of outer space. At the moment, for example, a number of agreements between Russian Space Agency and China's National Space Administration on the exploration of the Moon and the deep space are already being implemented in practice. On the 9th of March 2021, Russia and China signed a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in the field of creating an international lunar research station, one of the most ambitious Russian-Chinese space projects. This station will be designed to conduct scientific researches and is aimed at testing new technologies that in the future will be able to ensure a long-term human presence on the Moon. This station will be open for all countries interested in cooperation. And last but not least, I would like to congratulate our Mauritians friends who have also begun to take first important steps in the exploration of outer space, when the first Mauritian nanosatellite Mirsat-1, developed under the leadership of the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council within the framework of the KIBAQ program established by the government of Japan and the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, was successfully launched into orbit. We are confident that the data received from the satellite will allow Mauritius authorities to achieve even greater success in reaching their goals, and the experience gained will become the basis for further development of the Mauritian spaces industry. And it's very important to stress that the activity of the Rajiv Gandhi Scientific Center is a very important contribution to encourage the young generation of Mauritius for getting more interest in this particularly exciting but very important for the future of mankind subject. And we are very pleased to know that our cooperation with the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, which was established 2 years ago with the exhibition, and the Dr. Malu and Dr. Noga mentioned this fact, could continue for the best knowledge of to our countries, and I really appreciate the direction of the center and of course the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology for organizing this event, which could give more information to the people of Mauritius about the Soviet and Russian contribution to space exploration. And returning to the main topic of today's event, I want to emphasize that I am particularly delighted to transfer today to the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center the buste of the first cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, which was provided by the Russian charity public fund Dialogue of Cultures. Today's event is another sign of traditional friendship and historically friendly relations between Russia and Mauritius, between the people of our two countries, and I am sure that this cooperation will continue and probably will have Mauritius will join the Russian projects in this field in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
We'd just like to, at the very outset, indicate Honourable Minister's difficulty, impossibility to be around today. I've always said this whenever Rajiv Gandhi Science Center puts up some important science-related work, she is always present, and she was on her way here when, for reasons I cannot go into, she had to move somewhere else. And so she just gave me a tinkle, said, Dan, could you please pop in here, which is what I'm doing. But it's a pleasure for me, Excellency, to hear as well what's being done and to know about the collaboration that's taking place between the Science Center and, of course, your embassy, and, of course, through your embassy, the government of the Federation of Russia. Having said that, allow me, therefore, to very quickly go through the message of Honourable Minister. Okay, let me start. Your Excellency, Mr. Klimovsky, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Russian Federation to the Republic of Mauritius, Dr. Noga, Chairperson of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Trust Fund Board, Acting PS, Mrs. Govind. Am I right? Mrs. Govind is the Acting PS currently. Mr. Rico Okbar, Chief Technical Officer, Excellency Distinguished Ambassadors from different states accredited here, as well as a former ambassador to UNESCO, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Lord Mayor, Dr. Malu, Director Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, Professor Bauran, Director MRIC, directors and heads of ministries and parastatal bodies, board members of the Trust Fund, members of the media, distinguished guests, good morning to all of you. As usual, it's a pleasure to be here at Rajiv Gandhi Science Center that has now fully established itself as a nodal organization for an uptake in scientific interest in Mauritius. Today's occasion of the unveiling ceremony of the bust of the famous Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin adds yet another feather in the center's cap. This year, as we well know, marks the 60th anniversary of the first human space flight by Yuri Gagarin, carried out on 12th April 1961. Not only did this pioneering achievement open the door unto outer space for humanity, but this feat has also served as a glue, as a unifying agent for all nations around the globe, as for the first time a human being left his earthly cradle and went into space. Yuri Gagarin is rightly considered a hero in Russia and elsewhere in the world where he is known and revered. Humankind's first ever voyage into space aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft became a major milestone, in fact, a landmark in science and technology, ushering in a new era of space exploration. In fact, it's very much like the coming of an end of one era and the beginning of another era. We now recognize the dividing line in the world between the pre-space era and the post-space era. It was as though we had a world before the flight and a world after the flight. One would be right in supposing that this outstanding achievement of Soviet space exploration led to Gagarin's recognition being spread beyond his country and resulting in the United Nations proclaiming the 12th of April as the International Day of the human space flight. Ladies and gentlemen, it must be agreed that much of the credit goes, ironically, to what started as a space race. Historical hindsight enables us to see the extent to which such a race had given a fillip to science, to technology, and to innovation. Thus, the middle of the 20th century was indeed a time when the then Soviet Union became credited for a number of pioneering accomplishments in spaceflight. A few of them have already been named, but I don't mind taking them up again. The first satellite Sputnik 1 in 1957, the first human in space, the first woman in space, the first spacewalk by cosmonaut Alexei Leonov in 1965, the robotic lunar landing with the return of lunar rocks in 1970, and of course the first orbital space station Salyut 1 in 1971. As we all know, these were notably also followed by many probes which visited planets Mars and Venus. I believe we should here commend the government of Russia for its many achievements, past, present, and future, in the exploration of outer space. This is not likely to stop there. Russian astronomer Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who famously said, and I quote, "The Earth is the cradle of humankind, but one cannot remain in the cradle forever," unquote. Because this is what Yuri Gagarin, whose bust is being unveiled today, epitomized. This ceremony could not have been more appropriate in 2021, when Maurice has joined the restricted assembly of spacefaring nations, and we've been able to have our own satellite in space. Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, the idea has been sustained for a long time that space technology, rockets, satellites are reserved for a handful of rich countries. This conviction has been reinforced in the recent past by billionaires like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. As we know, they are vying with one another to become game changers and innovators in the domain of space travel. Worse, all this fuels the misconception that space technology has nothing to do with the common man. Fortunately, this is precisely what it is, a misconception. Such technology is, in fact, fundamentally connected to and is tightly linked to Mr. and Miss Average. As an agent of change, we want space technologies to empower and transform humanity. Space technologies open up new opportunities of development in engineering, biology, and provide us with new ways of addressing our challenges and coming up with solutions. Let us then recognize that the rapid developments of outer space application and space technologies have a profound impact on various aspects of humankind's economic and social life. Technologies related to telecommunications, navigation, meteorology, and remote sensing are getting more and more mature, playing an increasingly prominent role in such areas as sailing, fishery, agriculture, meteorology, and disaster reduction, all of which have significantly promoted economic development, social progress, and improvement of people's lives across the world. In recent years, as more and more countries become engaged in space activities, one can bet on the deepening of relevant international and regional cooperation. Such cooperation is turning out to be even more significant when we realize we are currently facing an unfortunate climate crisis that brings along its overwhelming share of troubles. This is where we turn to space technology as an invaluable asset in disaster management. Satellite communication channels often end up being the only mode of communication in crisis situations. On the other hand, accurate advanced warning and tracking of cyclones and tsunamis have saved countless lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to learn that the exhibition Fly Me into Space that we launched here at the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center in November 2019 is now traveling to secondary schools on the island. This initiative of the center and Russia will continue to help our youth at large to better connect with space. Mauritius may well be a small island state, but we are gradually on our way to somewhat harness this expertise in space technology. We are, for instance, part of the Global Square Kilometre Array, the SKA research initiative, which will have many implications for engineering, communications, and research. Who knows, Mauritius, due to its geographical location and well-educated workforce, has the potential to be the service provider in space applications in this part of the world. We must work towards this goal, recognizing all the same the fact that we will have to construct the necessary infrastructure and provide the appropriate logistics. We therefore look forward to many of our young being inspired by Yuri Gagarin and the other famous cosmonauts from Russia to drive our developmental process in social transformation, economic development, and resource conservation. The possibilities are limitless. The benefits are enormous as well, as Russia has aptly demonstrated with the recent provision of the Sputnik V vaccine that has been provided to us for the benefit of our citizens. Excellency, do please transmit to your government the Mauritian government's deep appreciation for this strong token of goodwill. Ladies and gentlemen, science knows no boundaries because knowledge belongs to humanity. It's a fertile ground for international collaboration, and my ministry, responsible for science and technology, engages at all times with all international bodies such as the UNESCO and with all countries such as Russia today in organizing science-related activities and projects. Active, regular participation in seminars and conferences, even virtually, is a given, since the development of human resources and capacity building will be critical for our future success. It is initiatives of this sort that spur an interest in science among our young learners. These initiatives also form part of our reform agenda, where our students are provided opportunities to engage in science clubs and in extracurricular activities which will boost their scientific understanding of the world. I look forward, says the Honourable Minister, to the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, through collaboration with countries such as Russia, to continue promoting science and technology among all the segments of the population. Space sciences and astronomy are amongst the most popular sciences or science fields that interest all age groups. The high demand of sky observation program of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center is a vivid example of that. I'm eager to see the setting up of the new satellite center of the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center in Rajuri in the years to come. This satellite center, which will contain the first planetarium in the Indian Ocean region, will certainly further interest our young minds who are keen on studying astronomy and space sciences. Let me conclude by once again congratulating the Rajiv Gandhi Science Center for organizing today's event. I'm also grateful to the Embassy of the Russian Federation in Mauritius for its full participation and contribution. I'm confident that the bust of Mr. Gagarin on the premises of the center will become yet another symbol of friendship between the Russian and Mauritian peoples, strengthened by continuation of the long-term collaboration in science and technology and education. I wish all the stakeholders the very best as you strive to showcase the conquest of space exploration. May all your endeavors meet with all the success they rightly deserve. I will now end with this quote from cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, who said, I quote, "When I orbited the Earth in this spaceship, I saw for the first time how beautiful our planet is. Mankind, let us work together to preserve and increase this beauty." End of quote. Thank you, Russia. Thank you, Rajiv Gandhi Science Center, for working together in promoting the beauty of science and technology and the peaceful use of space sciences. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you. Kind of honor that word that is given. Let me join, of course, the Honorable Minister and join all of you, Excellency, first to thank you so very much for really bringing together this kind of collaboration, this support, and creating this added interest to this in this new frontier that space happens to be. I was very happy when you mentioned this typical handshake that took place in outer space. I remember when I was a teacher at one time, we used to be talking about the space race and so on, but we also, as students and teachers, we used to be exchanging ideas of how space, in fact, necessitates a more global approach, how the extent to which we really need to go out to defy the gravity that's holding us on Earth and try to conquer, well, conquer is perhaps not the right word for it, but make forays into the outer space and learn so much that there is to be learned. Mr. Ogba, who is quite well known for what he does in terms of astronomy and so on, will tell you that the beauty of outer space there resides in its multifarious possibilities that it offers to all of us. And I'm happy, of course, that Rajiv Gandhi is now taking part also in that the World Space Week, wasn't it? Yes, that's it, the 4th to the 10th. It's a good thing. You're joining, 120 countries? Is that right? Right? I think it's an excellent thing to do, to be able to share experiences, to be able to, at the same time, learn in a very modest manner, very humble manner, accept that we don't know it all, but we can always learn from the enriching experiences that others can provide to us. Congratulations once again, and thank you, Excellency, for this bust that's been graciously provided to us in Mauritius. I'm sure lots of people will be even more fascinated to understand what is really happening around us up there. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much for your very kind attention.